When I was a kid, we all woke up on Saturday mornings and we got our sugary cereals and we sat down in front of the TV. We didn't sleep in on Saturdays. No, 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 no. There were too many cartoons to watch. Back then, you had to, like, if there were two shows on at the same time, you had to flip back and forth. Like, oh, okay, it's a commercial on Ninja Turtles. Flip over to Ghostbusters, you know. One show that we all watched wasn't a cartoon. Maybe the only one that wasn't a cartoon that we all tuned into was Pee-wee's Playhouse. Pee-wee Herman, people forget that he was a megastar. Not Paul Rubens. No, not Paul Rubens. Pee-wee Herman was a megastar. He was one of the biggest figures of the 80s. He was everywhere. He was, you know, movies, and the show was everywhere. Everybody had that stupid doll. He was warning us about crack. Pee-wee was everywhere. And the big leap from him doing stand-up and having small parts in like Cheech and Chong movies, his big leap was with the Tim Burton directed Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And this here is my best of Tim Burton collection with Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Edward Scissorhands, Mars Attacks, Sleepy Hollow, Beetlejuice, and Ed Wood. Back when Tim Burton was somebody who got me excited to go see a movie instead of just making me sad with the just remaking Disney movies but worse. Pee-wee's Big Adventure was his feature film debut, and he was perfect for that project. He took the surreal, childish aspect of Pee-wee's persona and blew it up onto the big screen, onto this giant canvas, and set him off on a truly epic adventure. Pee-wee is this man-child who has this weird child's fantasy house. Nobody knows how he pays for it. And his prized possession is his bike, and everybody wants his bike. And then one day it's stolen, and Pee-wee sets off to find it. Stupidest premise, but it works for Pee-wee. You know, this is sort of a cross-country adventure. He's on this road trip. He's hitchhiking. He's doing whatever he can to following the trail to get his bike back. And I watched this movie 1,000 times as a kid. I was a Pee-wee fan. And you know, this is 35 years ago, but I still love this movie. This movie still brings a smile to my face. I don't feel like it is dated. It's not one of those movies where from the 80s where it's so stuck in that decade and in that time that there's almost no way to enjoy it. Like, I mean, not that anybody would watch Michael Jackson's Moonwalker anymore. That feels like a comparison you could make, though. Where I can't imagine, I saw that movie once when I was a kid. I was never really a Michael Jackson fan. But it's that sort of the personas. That was just Michael Jackson's persona. It really wasn't a representation of who he was. It was who he wanted you to see him as. So it was these two personas. Why does one work and why does one not? Well, there's obvious reasons that people would not want to watch Moonwalker. But even before people were done with Michael Jackson, that movie didn't last. It didn't endure. And Pee-wee's Big Adventure did. And I think what it is that it can be enjoyed by adults. When you grow up, you get jokes that you didn't when you were a kid, which is what I really loved about 80s movies. When I think back on like Ghostbusters, Gremlins, Goonies, movies like that we watched as a kid that were aimed at us. But as we got older, we picked up on the subtleties of the jokes that we were too young to understand. Pee-wee's Big Adventure does that. I really wonder if somebody who isn't familiar with Pee-wee would enjoy this. A younger person. My kids did. My kids liked this when they were growing up. And, you know, Paul Reubens came back and he did a Pee-wee movie several years ago that is on Netflix. I was convinced it was going to be terrible. I really enjoyed it. I was shocked that the persona kind of still works for me. It's a little bit creepier because he's so old, but it kind of still worked. Seeing him, though, young and at the peak of his popularity in this movie, able to make the movie he wanted to make with a partner like Tim Burton, makes this movie a 4 out of 5 star movie. This is a classic of the 80s. This is one of those 80s movies that people forget when they do like the greatest of. You know, it's easy to rattle off like I just did, Goonies, Gremlins, stuff like that. Pee-wee's Big Adventure absolutely belongs in that pantheon of 80s cinema, of movies that stand up because they were unique, because they were made at a time when you could get away with a big studio movie being this. And when we'd all go to see it, it didn't have to be cookie cutter. It didn't all have to be the same generic thing. You could have an oddity like this, and people would go and see it and remember it for the rest of their lives.
The worlds. Sort of gave myself the challenge of, okay,